At no point did I ever say I hate Ghibli. I said the art style is plain and uninspired. And as to the art style as well,
say uninspired. You can
in
say
what
it's
way?
plain, but it's simple because it's animation.
So,
they need to crank these things out. But
well, that's not an excuse. I think there are animation styles that are more detailed. Absolutely. Uninspired is a more subjective thing, but I'm entitled to myself. I don't think it was particularly, innovative or groundbreaking. And that to me is that means it's uninspired in that sense. But at no point did I ever say I dislike it. I think it's plain. I think it's adequate, but nothing special. And that's why all the Ghibli kind of AI memes, when I was seeing them all, I was like, yeah, the Ghibli style really is plain. There's nothing that special about it.
Shadiversity has recently gone viral, something I explained in a previous video. Shad has been a huge advocate for AI imagery, and he claims that AI is better than Studio Ghibli, and that Studio Ghibli is both plain and uninspired. I was curious to see what professional artists had to think about Shad's comments. This is what animator and indie comics artist Sven Stoffels had to say.
I said, this fucking nerd needs to get wedgied for this.
Let's take a look at Shad's tweet, which garnered millions of views.
This was his take on the Studio Ghibli AI meme. He says, the Ghibli arts, so he's talking about Studio Ghibli, one of the most renowned animation studios for the past fucking 3 decades. They make the most beautiful, most wonderful, modern fairy tales, pure artistry. It can't be more artful and beautiful than Miyazaki's works, okay? And Studio Ghibli as a whole. And he goes like this. The Studio Ghibli art style is plain, uninspired. Can you believe this, Ashley? Uninspired, and the actual reasons people love it is because of the quality of the stories and the style has been attached to. And the fluidity and details of the animation it appears in, not the style itself. I get that it has an innocent charm to it, hence the fun in depicting controversial images in it, but that does not make the style itself anything special. When separated from those stories it's been used in and the quality of animation. And then he says, the AI version looks better, and crying about... Like, he's really... he thinks this looks better than this because it has more detail. This is just such a fucking retard. Just such a stupid fucking take. It just shows that this guy doesn't have any creative ability.
Recently, I had the opportunity to speak with Graham Nolan, known for his work on Batman and co-creating the villain Bane.
I couldn't disagree more with Shad about that it's better, that there's any artisticness to it. Just because you can describe something well doesn't make you an artist. Do you know what triadic colors are? Do you understand color theory? Do you understand what the 180 rule is in visual narratives? There's a million things that people don't understand about creating art and narrative art. And just because you can describe a sequence nicely doesn't make you an artist.
Sean Salter, a former Disney artist, explains how he feels about AI.
I used to be pretty much digital, but I've decided because AI is getting so advanced through stealing and theft, because that's what it does, guys. It does not actually do anything original. It copies and pastes.
Exactly.
And it is totally theft and immoral.
Shane Davis, the artist behind Superman Earth 1, further expounds on what Sean had to say.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Even if AI is superior or something because he says he typed more prompts in, it's stealing. Like, basically, AI can't create artwork. It can only grab images that already exist on Google and whatever platform you're using, or anything that you're hitting terms of service to give your images, photos, whatever to. You're giving all platforms right now. You have to look at the terms of service. But basically, AI is, using all these references to generate something that you're prompting. Basically, everything that's been fed to AI, it is just using the style, but all the raw material has everything from distribution rights to certain countries to actually Studio Ghibli owns the rights flat out for the material that AI is being fed. Yes, AI is only yanking the style and leaving all the copyrighted characters out of it, but the raw material it's being fed is owned by the studio. This is legally problematic in so many ways. And this is why I always throw caution to the AI stuff and people wanting to go to it right away, because people like Marvel have been actually taken to court for AI generated posters that people can prove, hey, that little dot over there is from my artwork on DeviantArt or something like that. And it's enough to go into court. That's going to cost you money right out the gate, right? Or you're going to have to settle. So I strongly encourage everybody, for any type of material that you want to print or own or for commerce, maybe steer the hell away from AI until people figure out the legal ramifications of it.
There's a wide spectrum of how people feel about AI. Shad represents the farthest fringe on one end. People who are not only in favor of AI, but also believe it to be superior to some of the greatest art produced by mankind. Sean Salter is probably a complete 180 to that. Someone who believes that AI is not only immoral, but that it's destined to be inferior to human art. It's interesting to see how certain Salty is in what he believes.
Nothing AI creates will ever move the soul as much as something man creates, because it lacks that spark. And that spark is, you know, the atheist will disagree, but that spark is God. We are created in God's image. God created us. We in turn create. That is the image in which we were created. So when machine does it, it's never, again, it doesn't create, it's memory. Like, sure, people could say, oh, but, you know, humans are inspired by this, they're inspired by that, they'll borrow, or they'll be in, you know, and then they'll take, or what have you. However, it's still going through a filtration process, and that filtration process is the soul and the human condition of that individual that is unique only to them.
Shad is also equally certain that he is right too. Shad believes that there isn't even a debate as to whether the AI image is better than Studio Ghibli. He says any objective person would be able to admit it.
I think to a very objective person, if you're just going to compare, which I was doing, compare the art styles, the old Miyazaki art style to that one, I think it's pretty clear that one image is superior in terms of overall quality and appeal. It's just the nostalgia people have for Miyazaki, which gets them really defensive, and the hate for AI art.
Well, people love his style. That's the thing. You're crapping on something that's a subjective opinion.
But his style isn't anything special. There are so many other animation studios. There are so.
Mike S. Miller, the artist who illustrated Shad's comic, seems to scoff at this idea. Shane Davis feels that Shad's take is actually anti-human.
And again, Shad's, you know, a big proponent of this is, you know, don't believe in human beings and the power of human beings. And, you know, don't believe in the artistic vision or soul of anything. And to be honest, all AI artwork kind of looks like the image on the right to me. It looks like everybody's ripping off Art Germ.
Graham Nolan explains why he feels artificial intelligence is inferior to the human mind.
This example here is the AI. I was on a show with Shad one time, and I was very vehement about how I'm against this kind of crap, because it takes the human element out of it. This is the one on the left is a drawing. And it's part of who that artist was, you know, that he's put into that drawing. This is just a pseudo photograph that has no soul. It's all surface detail. It's pretty. It's nice. The flesh tones are good, but they all look the same. They all have the same kind of look to them.
He expounds on the importance of not making everything hyper realistic.
You know, if for the example that I like to use is, you know what? When Charles Schultz draws a beagle on top of a doghouse, it's very unique. You know, you can't replicate that. And now you can tell AI to draw a beagle on a doghouse, and it's going to be this sterile thing that might look like a real beagle on a real doghouse, and it'd be kind of funny and weird looking, but it doesn't have the charm of Charles Schultz's pen and his imagination. I had an animation class taught by Milt Neal, who is a Disney animator.
Oh, wow.
Worked on Cinderella at the Kubert School. And one of the things we had to do is one of their classic bouncing ball tests, where you would draw all the cells for a ball bouncing. And one of the things he would stress was, you know, the ball, when it hits the ground, flattens out, you know, and then it comes back and goes up, and then you exaggerate that, and then when it's in motion, you know, it's like boom, 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 boom. It looks better than reality, you know, because I shouldn't say better than reality, but it looks like You know, when you see something that's rotoscoped in animation, you can tell that it's the limitations of the human body, and the movements and stuff look very realistic, and it's kind of cool if you're doing, you know, fire and ice with like these Frazetta characters, but they're not really pushing the drawings in an exaggerated way, you know. But we live in real life, so as entertainment, why do you want to? You know, you can look out the window for real life.
Yes.
For entertainment, you want something larger than life, something maybe more exciting or more interesting than what's going on in your own life.
Oftentimes people refer to AI imagery as art, a notion which Sven Stoffels brings into question.
I have to explain really quick what makes something art, because people are very confused about this, because a lot of people think, well, a painting, that is art. Look, a picture is art. No, when you think that a picture, a end product is automatically art, you are reducing art to decoration. You think it's just about a pretty picture. The end product is not automatically art. What defines whether or not, because people don't understand the definitions here. Something becomes art through the creative process, okay? The decisions that the artist is making while creating a piece of art, ultimately leading to an end product. That, the creative process, creates a piece of art. That's what you're doing. You're figuring shit out. There's an interplay between the medium and the artist. And here's the thing. Somebody who is not an artist and who's not intimately knowledgeable of how the process of creation actually works on a second-to-second basis, okay, when you're illustrating, that's my medium of choice. I'm trying to figure out how to put strokes down, how to make it more convincing. I'm learning about anatomy. And then when you try to make a comic book, I'm learning about the storytelling, blah, blah. When you can just type in, I want comic book about superhero doing this, and then the computer makes it for you. That's not art. It cannot be art because there is no process of creation that's being outsourced to the computer. So it cannot be art. It can be a very pretty picture, okay? This is a pretty picture. And then on top of that, of course, this pretty picture has been stolen. The machine learning has stolen this style from a human, okay? It did machine learning on a human. It scanned 100 of whatever this person's paintings was, and now it can assimilate that into a prompt that somebody types in, like, make Princess Mononoke look more rendered.
Ethan Manskiver, the artist behind Green Lantern Rebirth, weighs in too.
Just simply drawing something is not necessarily art, it's illustration, but like art goes way beyond that. To me, like, Cyberfrog Wrecked Planet was art because I was definitely inspired to say something, and along the way of producing that work, enjoyed, I would say would be the word, several just moments of divine inspiration where it felt like God was telling me what to say through the book and through images, and how everything kind of combined together to create the subtext of the comic. And I think that's what art is. I think that's the closest. I'm humble about being an artist. I would never call myself an artist. I'd say I'm an illustrator or a cartoonist. But the closest I've ever come to creating a piece of art, I submit, was Cyberfrog Wrecked Planet. It was just really just this incredible inspiration where at one point, like, tears come. It's like when you're creating something and you're that close to it and it's meaningful and profound to you, and then you're excited about putting it out in the world to see if anybody else gets it or responds to it or anything like that. I think that's what art is. It doesn't necessarily mean it's good. I'm not saying that it's like, that it's good art, but it is art. It came from me. It wasn't just like, here's a drawing I did of a little wolf girl and she's crouched down. And that's not what art is. So this is just illustration. Shad is talking about, illustration and all this stuff. It's not the lines and the colors that make either of these two pieces something that could be considered art. Sven is right. It's the intent that goes into it and then what people get from it that makes it art or not art. One of those two things. So Shadiversity, not an artist. Sven, an artist. If you actually read his books, he has if you read Butch Killigan, you'll see what I mean, and his interpretation of his ideas about what makes art, what art is. I agree with. I'm enjoying this immensely. The process of creating something is slow and laborious. Usually, it doesn't have to be, but usually it is, because there's a lot of like human insight. There's a lot of personal realization. There's a lot of pain and sweat that goes into creating something that's actually art. A lot of thought. It's not effortless. It's not like something that you can just do like by typing in a bunch of prompts and then shitting out like a pretty picture. He's right. I mean, AI creates beautiful images. It creates beautiful images, but you cannot call it art. There has to be a point where you just go, look, it's illustration. Pretty picture is about as I think that's a pretty good way to define what AI does. It makes a pretty picture. But yeah, it's not art, because art is a human endeavor. And you have to delineate, that notion. People who have made great art know what that is, or people who have made art at all just know what that is, like what that means. Actually put yourself in a situation where you're producing something that comes from within, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. Art definitely comes from within. It can't come from a computer.
But the ramifications of AI extend far beyond art. Graham Nolan explains how it could have drastic impacts on society.
I just think in general, AI is going to continue, and we're starting to see like photographic AI, people acting and doing things, and you're like, that really happened? Is that real? And that to me is going to be scary. Recently there was a principal lost his job for a so-called racist telephone message he left on an answering machine. Well, once they analyzed it, they found out that he never said those things, that his voice was recreated using like an AI program saying all these terrible things. And that's just an audio. Right. We're going to get to the point where, some of the stuff is so realistic looking, it's going to be scary. And then you start to wonder, is it real? Is it true? And we're already in an age where trust is a rare commodity. Trust of officials, trust of media, all this kind of stuff. And if we lose that, I mean, that's a sad state of affairs right there, that we don't trust anything. And yet then we find out people will believe anything. It's really is a crazy world.
Sean Salter takes it a step further.
There is no one that has your experience. There's no one that has my experience. And that experience informs a lot of the data and information we put in, and it gets filtered through that experience, which is unique. And that's why songs and art move us, because we're seeing that art through that person's experience. And AI will never be able to duplicate that. And AI is designed, really, at the end of the day, what AI is going to do is it's going to alienate and isolate humans from contact with each other. We're going to end up having a world where there's no longer water cooler conversations about the television show or the video game or the movie that you saw. It's going to be your own personalized experience that no one's going to be able to relate to, because it's your own personalized experience, because AI is going to make narcissists of us all, and we're not going to be able to relate to one another. That might be by design, because the more we're divided, the easier we are to enslave and control.
But is Shad wrong about everything?
There's a thing called AI assisted art, right? You wouldn't call it AI art, it's AI assisted. And no one was really understanding that. And so I was like, fine, if you just want to call it AI art, I'll call it AI art. This time around, people are like, Shad, you can't really call this AI art. This is more like AI assisted art. I'm like, it's just what I've been saying for years, but okay, fine. Like, I'm glad we're on the same page now,
Are there any moral or practical uses for AI?
Well, I'm a pragmatist. AI is here to stay. There's no denying that. How it is used is what is going to come into question. Now, using AI as part of your job, whether you're telling a narrative and stuff, I've used it as a tool the same way I would use Photoshop. And what I mean by that is, I suck at tech drawing, like spaceships and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I might put in a command, draw me a spaceship inspired by Ridley Scott's Aliens or something like that. If I wanted something modern, and then it would spit out some designs, and I would never copy those designs, but they would give me shapes and to work with that. Oh, okay, so this is what a modern spaceship would look like, rather than just a cigar with fins is what I would draw. Some kind of 50s bullshit. And I wanted to modernize it, so this would give me ideas on how to approach it and turn it into mine. So I use it as sort of a blueprint of ideas of a different way of thinking for something.
For sure. I guess kind of like if we go back to this photo right here of one of the first books you did with DC, I'm guessing you probably used a reference photo for that CIA building, I would think.
Yeah, there was probably a photograph that I got from a textbook or something like that at the library.
Right. So what you're saying is UCAI is something where it's okay to use, and you would use or maybe have used if you're using it in the same way you'd use a reference photo, basically.
Yeah, and I wouldn't just slap the AI drawing down. I would maybe I would change, like, especially if it's a design issue, something that doesn't exist, like the CIA building obviously does exist. Like I said, if let's say it's a spaceship or something like that, I'm not going to copy the spaceship that the AI had spit out, but I may, be inspired by the shapes and some of the doodads and knickknacks and all the stuff that's on there, which would give me a different way of thinking about it.
Right.
So that's using it like a tool, the same way you would use Photoshop to add color into things and stuff,
Just as an artist uses a reference photo, Graham says it's also okay to reference an AI image as well. Of course, that's just using it as a catalyst for inspiration, not actually putting the AI image into your own artwork. Let's see what Sven Stoffels has to say.
Yeah. I've been massively anti-AI right now, it seems, but I think AI can be a very good tool eventually for artists to make the process of animation and all this stuff way more efficient and quick, and it can make smaller teams way more productive. But what's happening right now is that you have guys like this, and they're trying to elevate their own mediocrity to something undeserved, and that's what's pissing people off.
He believes that AI will one day be used by animators to make the projects a lot more scalable. Animation software has already made the process a lot more manageable, but Graham still had some very sharp words for those who tried to claim AI images as their own.
Creating your own comic book just using AI prompts is a crutch and a lie. And anybody that does that should be ashamed of themselves. Learn your craft.
So what do you think about Shadiversity and his opinions about Studio Ghibli and AI? And how do you feel about the impending AI revolution? Are you more scared or hopeful? And will machines ever be able to create something truly beautiful, or even perceive beauty the way that we humans do? These are some of the questions I asked in my short science fiction story, The Human Directive. If you enjoy audiobooks and you're a channel member, make sure to give it a look. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.